Our story begins in a world of immense cold, a planet gripped by the Great Ice Age. It was a time of colossal glaciers and vast frozen tundras where the very air was sharp and unforgiving. In this challenging landscape across the continents of Europe and Western Asia, a remarkable kind of human emerged around 400,000 years ago. These were the Neanderthals, a people perfectly sculpted by the harsh realities of their environment. They were not brutish, hunched-over creatures of primitive imagination, but a resilient and intelligent species, the true pioneers of survival in a world of ice. Their existence was a constant battle, a daily testament to the strength and adaptability of the human spirit in its earliest forms. Imagine a landscape unlike any we know today. Great sheets of ice, kilometers thick, covered much of the northern hemisphere, and where the ice ended, a windswept steppe stretched to the horizon. Temperatures frequently plunged far below freezing, and bitter winds howled across plains dotted with hardy shrubs and sparse grasses. This was the stage upon which the Neanderthal saga unfolded. For hundreds of thousands of years, they were the dominant human presence in this realm, their lives interwoven with the cycles of long, brutal winters and short, cool summers. They witnessed the slow, grinding advance and retreat of glaciers, adapting their lives to the dramatic shifts in climate that defined their era. The world they inhabited was populated by a menagerie of magnificent and terrifying beasts. Herds of woolly mammoths, with their great curved tusks and shaggy coats, roamed the grasslands, their heavy footfalls shaking the frozen earth. Woolly rhinoceroses, formidable and solitary, grazed on the tough vegetation, while vast herds of reindeer migrated across the plains, following ancient routes dictated by the changing seasons. These animals were not just part of the scenery. They were the key to Neanderthal survival, providing the food, clothing, and materials necessary to endure the relentless cold. The story of the Neanderthals is inextricably linked to the story of these incredible Ice Age giants. Their home was the land itself. They sought shelter from the biting winds and prowling predators in the natural formations of the earth, limestone caves and rock overhangs that offered a sanctuary from the elements. Within these rocky shelters, generations of Neanderthals were born, lived, and died. The caves became the heart of their social world, places of warmth, safety, and community. It was here, around a crackling fire, that they shared food, crafted their tools, and cared for their young and their old. These were the first true homes of Europe, the ancient hearths around which the complex tapestry of Neanderthal life was woven over millennia. The Neanderthal body was a masterpiece of biological engineering, meticulously adapted for life in a frigid climate. They were shorter and stockier than us, a build that is incredibly efficient at conserving body heat. The average male stood around 164 centimeters, while females were slightly smaller, at about 155 centimeters. This compact, powerful physique minimized the surface area exposed to the cold, a crucial advantage when every calorie of energy was precious. Their limbs were relatively short, and their chests were broad and deep, housing large lungs that could process the cold, dry air of the Ice Age with greater efficiency. Every aspect of their form was a response to the evolutionary pressures of their icy world. Their physical strength was simply immense, far surpassing that of modern humans. Their bones were thicker and denser, indicating that they supported a formidable muscle mass. This was not strength for show, it was a necessary tool for daily life. They needed this power to hunt enormous and dangerous animals, to carry heavy loads of meat and hides back to their shelters, and to perform the demanding physical tasks required for survival without the aid of modern technology. Scrutiny of their fossilized remains reveals a life of incredible physical exertion, with healed fractures and signs of wear and tear that speak of a rugged and strenuous existence. Their very skeletons tell a story of power, resilience, and hardship. One of their most distinctive features was their face. Neanderthals possessed a prominent, projecting brow ridge over their eyes, a long and broad nose and a receding chin. For many years these features were misinterpreted as signs of a primitive nature, but they were in fact brilliant adaptations. The large nasal cavity may have served to warm and humidify the cold, dry air they breathed before it reached their lungs, protecting delicate internal tissues from damage. Their large faces and powerful jaws were built to withstand the stresses of using their teeth as a third hand, a common practice for gripping hides or materials while working on them with tools. These physical traits, combined with their intelligence, allowed Neanderthals to thrive where other species would have perished. They were the apex survivors of the Pleistocene epoch. Their bodies were living furnaces, their muscles were powerful engines, and their very bones were a testament to a life of strength and endurance. They were not clumsy or slow, but agile and robust hunters, perfectly in tune with their surroundings. To understand the Neanderthals is to appreciate the incredible power of evolution to shape a species for a specific time and place, creating a form of humanity that was perfectly and beautifully adapted to the world of ice. Survival in the Ice Age depended on securing a steady supply of calories, and for Neanderthals, this meant hunting. They were not mere scavengers, picking at the leftovers of other predators. They were formidable and highly skilled hunters at the very top of the food chain. Their primary targets were the large herbivores of the Pleistocene megafauna, animals like reindeer, steppe bison, wild horses, and even the colossal woolly mammoths and rhinos. A successful hunt could provide a small group with enough food to last for weeks, along with valuable hides for clothing and shelter, and bones for tools. The hunt was the central drama of Neanderthal life, demanding immense courage, strength, and most importantly, teamwork. Neanderthal hunting was a collaborative enterprise, requiring sophisticated planning and communication. They did not possess long-range projectile weapons like bows and arrows, so they had to get dangerously close to their prey. Their primary weapons were sturdy wooden spears, sometimes tipped with razor-sharp, fire-hardened points or meticulously crafted stone spearheads. To take down an animal many times their size, a group of hunters had to work in perfect concert. They would use their intimate knowledge of the landscape to their advantage, driving herds of animals into narrow ravines, over cliffs, or into marshy ground, where their movement would be restricted, making them easier and safer to dispatch. Imagine the scene, a small band of Neanderthals, moving with stealth and purpose through the frigid air. They have tracked a reindeer herd for days, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. With a series of coordinated signals, they burst from their hiding places, creating a wall of sound and movement to guide the panicked animals toward a pre-selected ambush point. The air is filled with the thunder of hooves and the guttural shouts of the hunters. As the animals are funneled into a bottleneck, the hunters close in, thrusting their heavy spears with immense force. It is a chaotic, dangerous, and bloody affair, where a single mistake could lead to serious injury or death. The evidence for these sophisticated hunting strategies is written in the bones they left behind. At archaeological sites, we find large accumulations of animal remains, often from a single species, indicating successful, large-scale hunts. Analysis of these bones shows the telltale cut marks from Neanderthal stone tools, proving they butchered the carcasses methodically. They would strip the meat, break open the bones to extract the nutritious marrow, and process the hides. This was a complex and organized activity that demonstrates their high level of social cooperation and cognitive ability. The Great Hunt was not just about food. It was the crucible in which Neanderthal society was forged. In the beginning, fire was a terrifying and unpredictable force of nature, a destructive power born from lightning strikes that could consume the landscape. Early Neanderthals likely feared it, watching from a safe distance as it roared through the dry grasslands, but at some point a profound shift occurred. Perhaps a brave or curious individual dared to approach the embers of a dying wildfire and felt its comforting warmth. Taking a smouldering branch back to the cold, dark cave would have been a revolutionary act. Learning to feed the flame with dry wood and keep it alive marked the first step in mastering one of the most powerful tools in human history, ending what could be called their dark age. The control of fire fundamentally transformed the Neanderthal way of life. It provided a reliable source of warmth, turning a cold, damp cave into a comfortable home. This was a crucial advantage in the brutal Ice Age winters, allowing them to survive in regions that would have otherwise been uninhabitable. The flickering light of the hearth pushed back the primordial darkness, extending the day and allowing for activities to continue after sunset. The fire became the social center of the group, a place where stories could be shared, tools could be made, and the bonds of community could be strengthened in the shared circle of light and warmth. Fire also offered a powerful new form of protection. The world outside the cave was filled with dangerous nocturnal predators like cave lions, leopards, and hyenas. A well-tended fire at the mouth of a cave would have been a formidable deterrent, keeping these fearsome beasts at bay while the group rested in relative safety. This newfound security would have dramatically reduced stress and increased their chances of survival. Furthermore, the ability to create fire at will, a breakthrough made when they discovered that striking certain stones like pyrite together produced sparks, gave them unprecedented control over their environment. They could now carry the potential for fire with them, a portable source of warmth, light, and safety. Perhaps one of the most significant changes brought by fire was the advent of cooking. The accidental discovery that meat dropped into a fire became more tender, flavorful, and easier to digest was a culinary and biological revolution. Cooking food unlocked more nutrients and calories, providing a more efficient energy source that helped fuel their large, energy-demanding brains. It also killed harmful bacteria and parasites, improving their overall health. This simple act of applying heat to food fundamentally altered their relationship with their diet and their own bodies, contributing to their long-term success as a species. The gift of flame was truly the gift of a new and better existence. The Neanderthal mind was far more complex and creative than once believed. Their intelligence is evident in the sophisticated tools they crafted. For hundreds of thousands of years, they perfected the Mousterian tool-making technique, a method that required careful planning and skill. They would meticulously prepare a core of flint or other suitable stone, then strike off sharp flakes of a predetermined size and shape. These flakes were then refined into a variety of specialized implements, sharp points for spears, scrapers for cleaning animal hides, and knives for butchering meat. This was not random rock bashing. It was a craft passed down through generations, demonstrating forethought, dexterity, and a deep understanding of materials. Beyond the practical, we see tantalizing glimpses of a symbolic and artistic world. Neanderthals were the first humans known to use pigments. They collected minerals like red and yellow ochre and black manganese, which they ground into powders. While their exact purpose is debated, it is likely they used these pigments to paint their own bodies, perhaps for rituals, camouflage, or as a way of signifying group identity. At some sites, we find eagle talons and perforated shells that appear to have been worn as personal ornaments, like necklaces or pendants. These simple yet profound objects suggest a dawning sense of self-awareness and an appreciation for beauty and abstract expression. One of the most moving indicators of their humanity is how they treated their dead. There is compelling evidence that Neanderthals intentionally buried their deceased. In caves like Shanidar in Iraq and La Chapelle-aux-Saints in France, skeletons have been found carefully placed in shallow graves, sometimes in a flexed, sleeping position. In one famous instance at Shanidar, pollen found in the soil around a skeleton suggested that the individual may have been laid to rest on a bed of flowers. While this specific interpretation is debated, The act of burial itself implies a profound emotional response to death. It suggests they cared for their companions and that they were beginning to grapple with the great mysteries of life and mortality. This capacity for care extended to the living as well. The fossil record includes the remains of individuals who survived for years with debilitating injuries or age-related infirmities. One elderly individual from Shanidar was partially blind, had a withered arm, and walked with a painful limp, yet he lived to a ripe old age. He could not have survived alone. His survival is powerful, silent proof that he was cared for by his group. They fed him, protected him, and supported him. This compassion and social responsibility reveal a deep emotional complexity and a strong social fabric, painting a picture of a people who were not just survivors, but a community bound by empathy. Life for a Neanderthal group was fraught with constant danger, a daily struggle against forces that could extinguish their existence in an instant. The very climate was an adversary. Winters were unimaginably severe, with relentless blizzards that could trap a group in their cave for weeks, cutting them off from vital resources. A sudden, unseasonable cold snap could decimate the herds they relied on for food, leading to periods of starvation. Avalanches and rockfalls were a constant threat in the mountainous terrain they often inhabited. Survival required not just strength, but an encyclopedic knowledge of the weather, the seasons, and the land itself. Every decision, from where to shelter to when to hunt, carried life or death consequences. The world was also home to an array of formidable predators, competitors that saw Neanderthals, particularly their young and infirm, as potential prey. The most fearsome of these was the cave lion, a beast larger than any modern lion, which hunted in the same territories. The stealthy leopard was another deadly threat, as were packs of powerful cave hyenas capable of crushing bone with their massive jaws. Perhaps the most iconic predator of the era was the saber-toothed cat, like Smilodon, armed with huge, dagger-like canine teeth. An encounter with one of these apex carnivores in the open would have been a terrifying prospect, and Neanderthal fossil remains sometimes bear the tooth marks of these ancient killers. Even the animals they hunted posed a significant threat. A cornered woolly mammoth, weighing several tons, could easily crush a hunter with its immense weight, or gore them with its enormous tusks. A charging woolly rhinoceros was like a prehistoric battering ram, almost impossible to stop. Even a panicked bison or a kick from a wild horse could result in broken bones, a potentially fatal injury in a world without modern medicine. The high frequency of healed fractures found on Neanderthal skeletons, particularly on the head and upper body, is remarkably similar to the injury pattern seen in modern rodeo riders, attesting to a life of frequent, violent, close-quarters encounters with large and dangerous animals. Illness and injury were ever-present spectres. A simple infection from a cut could prove fatal. A broken leg would render a hunter unable to contribute, becoming a burden on the group's precious resources. Childbirth was an incredibly risky event for both mother and infant. While we know they cared for their sick and injured, their medical knowledge was limited to what nature and experience could teach them. They lived in a state of constant vulnerability, where their resilience, social cohesion, and deep understanding of their harsh environment were the only things standing between them and oblivion. Their survival for hundreds of thousands of years in such a perilous world is perhaps their most incredible achievement. For hundreds of millennia, the Neanderthals had been the sole masters of their icy European and Asian domains. But around 45,000 years ago, a new chapter in the human story began. From the warm continent of Africa, a different kind of human, Homo sapiens, our direct ancestors, started to venture outward. These were anatomically modern humans, with a taller, more slender build than the stocky Neanderthals. Driven by a combination of factors, perhaps a changing climate in their African homeland that caused rivers to dry up, or simply the innate human curiosity to see what lay beyond the horizon, small bands began a great migration that would eventually see them populate the entire globe. Their journey out of Africa was an epic feat of exploration and endurance. One of the key migration routes was across the Red Sea, which, due to lower sea levels during the Ice Age, was narrower and shallower than it is today. Using simple rafts or perhaps even walking across exposed land bridges, these pioneering groups made their way into the Arabian Peninsula. From there, they spread out generation by generation, following coastlines and river valleys eastward into Asia and northwestward toward the colder lands of Europe. They were explorers entering an unknown world, equipped with a versatile toolkit and a highly adaptable mind, but they were ill-prepared for the frigid continent that lay ahead. When Homo sapiens finally arrived in Ice Age Europe, they entered a world for which they were not physically built. Their lean bodies, evolved for dissipating heat in the African savanna, were poorly suited to the bitter cold. Their hunting techniques, while effective, were not yet adapted to the specific challenges of pursuing Ice Age megafauna. They faced the same brutal winters and dangerous predators as the Neanderthals, but without the benefit of millennia of genetic and cultural adaptation to the environment. Their initial foray into this new continent must have been a desperate struggle for survival, a time of great hardship and uncertainty. These newcomers were different from the Neanderthals in subtle but important ways. They tended to live in larger social groups and had more extensive social networks, which allowed for the exchange of information and resources over wider areas. Their toolkit, while initially similar, soon began to show signs of rapid innovation, including the development of more refined blade technology and the use of new materials like bone and antler for tools such as needles and spear throwers. It was this combination of social complexity and technological ingenuity that would give them a crucial edge as they began to navigate their new frozen home, a home that was already occupied. The first encounters between the resident Neanderthals and the arriving Homo sapiens must have been moments of profound wonder and apprehension. For the first time in their history, each group came face to face with a different kind of human. They would have noticed the physical differences immediately. The Neanderthals, powerful and stocky. The Homo sapiens, taller and more gracile. Initial interactions were likely cautious, a mixture of curiosity and fear of the unknown. But the harsh realities of Ice Age survival would have quickly encouraged cooperation over conflict. Necessity became the mother of connection. An exchange of knowledge soon began, born from mutual need. A Neanderthal, seeing the newcomers struggling with the cold, might have offered a piece of cooked mammoth meat, a gesture of goodwill. In return, a Homo sapiens might have shared a handful of preserved berries or demonstrated a new technique for making a sharper stone blade. The Neanderthals held the wisdom of the land. They knew the best hunting grounds, the migration routes of the reindeer, and which caves offered the best shelter from the winter storms. They taught the newcomers how to create warm, tailored clothing from animal hides, using bone awls to punch holes for lacing. In turn, Homo sapiens brought new ideas and technologies. They may have introduced more efficient hunting tools, such as the spear thrower or atlatl, a device that dramatically increased the range and power of a thrown spear. This allowed for safer and more effective hunting of large game from a distance. They also brought different social strategies and perhaps more complex forms of symbolic communication, which may have spurred on new cultural developments in both groups. This was not a one-sided relationship, it was a two-way street, a cultural and technological exchange that benefited both populations as they navigated their shared world. This period of coexistence led to the most intimate connection of all. The two groups began to see each other as partners, as mates, as family. Neanderthals and Homo sapiens formed relationships and had children together. These children would have been a blend of their parents, perhaps possessing the robust facial features of their Neanderthal parent, and the more modern physique of their Homo sapiens parent. This interbreeding was a pivotal moment in human history. It demonstrates that despite their differences, the two groups recognized each other as fellow humans, capable of love, companionship, and creating a shared lineage. The barriers between them were not insurmountable. The period of coexistence between Neanderthals and Homo sapiens lasted for several thousand years, but it could not last forever. Slowly, inexorably, the Neanderthal population began to decline. There was no single dramatic event that caused their disappearance. Rather, it was a slow fading, a result of a complex combination of factors. The ever-changing climate of the late Ice Age brought rapid and extreme fluctuations, disrupting the ecosystems they had adapted to so perfectly. These environmental pressures, combined with potential competition for resources with the growing populations of Homo sapiens, may have put their small, scattered groups under immense strain. It is also possible that the newcomers brought with them diseases from Africa to which the Neanderthals had no immunity, a tragic story repeated many times throughout human history. Furthermore, the slightly higher birth rates and larger social networks of Homo sapiens may have given them a demographic advantage over time. Even a small advantage, compounded over dozens of generations, could lead to one population gradually replacing another. The end for the Neanderthals was not a violent conquest, but a slow demographic tide that eventually submerged them. Around 40,000 years ago, the last Neanderthal groups vanished from the fossil record, and their unique world came to an end. For a long time, their extinction was seen as the final chapter of their story. They were considered a failed, dead-end branch of the human family tree. But the remarkable advances in genetic science have revealed a stunning epilogue. By sequencing the Neanderthal genome from ancient bones, scientists discovered that their story did not truly end. The children born from the unions between Neanderthals and Homo sapiens survived, thrived, and passed their mixed heritage down through the generations. Their legacy was carried forward, woven directly into the genetic fabric of modern humans. Today, that ancient legacy lives on inside us. People of non-African descent carry between 1 and 2% Neanderthal DNA in their genomes. These echoes from the Ice Age influence a variety of traits in modern humans, from our hair and skin to aspects of our immune system. The Neanderthals are not entirely gone. A part of them survived in us, a ghostly yet tangible inheritance from our distant ancestors. They shaped the course of human history, contributing to the great tapestry of our species and leaving an indelible mark on who we are today. They were a different kind of human, but in the end, they are also a part of us.